It was one of those strangely quiet Wednesday afternoons. I'd left work early, something that rarely happened because a client meeting got rescheduled last minute. I figured I'd surprise Claire with takeout from that Mediterranean place she liked. We'd both been so busy lately, always crossing paths without ever really meeting, like two strangers living parallel lives in the same house. I missed her, or maybe I missed the version of her I used to know. I didn't know it then, but that day would burn itself into my memory with a clarity that still unsettles me. When I opened the front door, the house felt off. Not messy, not tense, just off. Quiet, but not in the comforting, peaceful way. It was too quiet, like the house itself was holding its breath. No music playing, no clattering in the kitchen, no soft laugh from whatever rom-com Claire might have had on in the background while working. Just silence and the faint smell of lavender detergent that clung to our living room throw blanket. Then I noticed her phone. It was lying on the corner of the couch, screen up, still unlocked. Claire never left her phone lying around. She was one of those people who always had it in hand or flipped face down if we were talking. Something about being present. She treated that thing like a limb. I wouldn't have touched it. I've never been that guy. But the screen lit up as I passed, and instinct made me glance. And that was it. That one moment changed everything. A message preview. From someone named Ryan. I didn't recognize the name. There was a photo attached. I don't even know what I expected. A meme? Some group chat joke? But instead there was Claire. My Claire. Sitting at a restaurant table. White wine glass half full. Soft yellow lighting. Candle in the center. And across from her? A man's hand reaching over the table, wrapped around hers. His face wasn't fully in the frame, but you could see enough. Close-cropped hair, dark jacket, wristwatch. Claire was smiling, almost laughing, leaning in like she didn't have a care in the world. Like this wasn't a casual business lunch. Like she belonged there. My stomach flipped. I couldn't move at first. I just stood there, heart thudding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My first instinct wasn't even anger. It was disbelief. Like my brain couldn't connect what my eyes were seeing to reality. I heard the bathroom door open upstairs. Water running. Then footsteps. Claire came down the stairs in yoga pants and a hoodie, towel slung over her shoulders. Her hair was damp, fresh from a shower. When she spotted me standing by the couch, phone in hand, she froze. Just for a second. It was barely noticeable, but it was there. I turned the screen toward her. Who's Ryan? She looked at the phone. Her expression didn't shift, but I saw something flicker behind her eyes. Then came the smile. That practiced, dismissive smile. The one she used when talking to difficult coworkers or customer service agents. Like I was being ridiculous. Oh, that? She said, walking toward the kitchen like it was nothing. He's just an old colleague. We ran into each other last week while I was grabbing coffee downtown. Totally random. I didn't say anything. She kept going, opening the fridge like we weren't mid-conversation. He asked if I wanted to catch up. Networking, business stuff. We met for lunch. That was the photo he took. He's one of those post everything on social media types. Thought it was funny. I was still standing by the couch, still holding her phone, still staring at her. You're holding hands, I said quietly. She laughed. Not hard, not from the gut. More like a puff of air meant to mock the idea of this being serious. Jason is not like that. He's just dramatic. That's how he jokes around. You're overthinking it. She finally looked at me, really looked at me, and her face changed slightly. Less humor, more frustration. What is this? Are we really doing this right now? She asked. Are we seriously playing the jealous husband card over a picture? I said nothing. Not because I was convinced, but because I didn't know how to respond to how casually she was trying to brush this off. Like I was the crazy one. She crossed her arms, her tone sharp now. You know what? This is exactly why I didn't tell you. Because you get like this. Possessive. Insecure. It's exhausting, Jason. I felt my throat tighten. I just asked who he was. Yeah, and you're standing there like you caught me committing treason. It's a photo, Jason. From lunch. I don't have time to explain every little thing to you like I'm being interrogated. Then she turned, grabbed her gym bag from the hook by the door, and added, "You know what? I'm going to my mom's. I need a break from this energy." My brain stumbled. "Your mom's?" I repeated. "Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and be accused of things I didn't do. I'll be back tomorrow. Or not. Who knows?" Her voice was tight now, like she was building steam, projecting indignation to mask discomfort. She slammed the door on the way out. I stood there in the quiet house for a long time after that, still holding her phone, still seeing that image burned into my retinas. It wasn't the photo that undid me. It was how easily she flipped it, how practiced the excuses felt, how quick she was to make me the villain, to turn her leaving into a justified exit from negativity. But the real punch to the gut didn't hit until about 2 a.m. Couldn't sleep. I kept checking my phone, wondering if she'd call or text. She didn't, and somewhere in the haze of exhaustion, I remembered something. Claire's mom lives in Boulder, Colorado. We live in Oregon. She couldn't have driven there. She hadn't booked a flight. She didn't even take a suitcase, just a gym bag. And that's when everything fell into place. She lied. Not just about the photo, about where she was going, about who she was with, about what she was doing. And she'd done it so easily, so calmly, like she'd done it before. That moment, that late-night realization, was the first time in our entire marriage that I knew, beyond any doubt, that Claire had lied straight to my face without hesitation. And if she could lie about something like that, what else could she lie about? I lay awake the rest of the night, staring at the ceiling. The house suddenly felt foreign, like I was living in a memory of something that used to be real. And even though I didn't want to admit it then, I knew this wasn't the end of it. It was only the beginning. After that night, something inside me shifted. I wish I could say I confronted her the next day, or that I demanded the truth and walked away. But the truth is, I didn't. I just watched, because part of me still wanted to believe her. To believe that Claire had a bad moment, made a poor judgment call, and that this whole thing could be chalked up to miscommunication. I wasn't ready to accept that the woman I'd built a life with might be hiding an entirely different life of her own. But once your trust cracks, everything feels off. It started with the little things, changes that, by themselves, wouldn't have raised alarms. She changed her perfume. For years, she wore this subtle floral scent, something soft, familiar. But one morning, as she leaned in to grab her keys, I caught a whiff of something sharp, deeper, muskier. It wasn't the kind of perfume she'd wear to work or brunch with friends. It was the kind you wear at night, when you want someone to remember you. I asked about it. She shrugged. "Just felt like trying something new," she said. "You always said the old one faded too fast." Except, I never said that. Not once. A few days later, I noticed her conditioner had changed too. Claire had always used this one brand, the same brand for years. She said it reminded her of college. But now the bathroom smelled different after her showers. Hotel shampoo, that's what it reminded me of. That generic citrus vanilla mix you find in a travel-size bottle on a neatly folded towel. Then there were the hours. She started working late more often. At first, it made sense. She'd recently taken on more responsibility at the firm. But one evening, she came home close to 10, claiming she'd been in back-to-back meetings. She tossed her laptop bag on the chair, kicked off her heels, and collapsed on the couch. I brought her some tea. She thanked me but didn't open her computer once that night. Out of curiosity, or maybe out of desperation, I checked it later when she went to bed. No new emails, no drafts, no open documents, not even a browser tab left behind. Nothing. The next day, she said she was carpooling with a coworker to a team dinner. Fine. No reason not to believe that, right? Except I found a printed receipt in the back seat of her car 2 days later. It had fallen between the seats. A wine shop, fancy one, bottle of red, priced higher than the kind we usually get. The receipt was time-stamped just 30 minutes before the supposed dinner started. That same week, I noticed her gas tank draining faster than usual. We live 10 minutes from her office. She barely drives outside of work, especially not lately. I casually mentioned it. "Huh," she said, not looking up from her phone. "I guess I've just been driving more errands." But she couldn't name a single one when I asked. Another time I came home early again. Not to catch her. Just because I didn't want to be at work. I was tired, exhausted from second-guessing myself, wondering if I was becoming paranoid or if I was finally waking up to something that had been happening for longer than I wanted to admit. She wasn't home. But what stood out wasn't that she was gone. It was that the house felt untouched, quiet in a staged kind of way. No coat on the rack. No shoes by the door. No half-empty coffee mug left on the counter, like she normally did. She hadn't just stepped out. She'd never come home at all. That's when I started writing things down. Not in some obsessive way. Not with red string and printed screensh *TS. But I needed to track it for my own sanity. I kept a file on my laptop. Date, time, what she said, what I saw. Like this, Thursday, for 42 p.m. Says she's staying late to finish budget reports. 9:35 p.m. No open spreadsheets on her laptop. Shower smells like unfamiliar soap. Friday morning. She forgets to take her work bag to early client meeting. It was like building a puzzle, except every new piece made the picture worse. One night, I was taking out the trash, and I noticed an empty wine box in the recycling bin. Not unusual, except it was from a winery she used to make fun of. Too expensive to taste like cough syrup, she'd once said. Now she was buying it, drinking it. Alone? I pulled it out and stared at the label. The name sounded familiar. Later, I realized it was the same brand she'd brought to a holiday party 2 years ago. Party she'd gone to alone because I had the flu. A party hosted by some co-workers I never met. At the bottom of the trash bin was a wrinkled paper bag from a boutique jewelry store. Empty. Claire had new earrings. Small studs. Gold with a dark stone. I asked where she got them. "They were on clearance," she said casually. Spur-of-the-moment thing. I checked the store's website later that night. That design wasn't on clearance. It wasn't even listed as part of their regular inventory. Custom order only. And that was when the questions stopped being gentle. That weekend, while folding laundry, I found a receipt stuffed in the pocket of one of her coats. I almost didn't check it, just balled it up and tossed it toward the trash. But I paused. Something told me to look. It was for a hotel. Coastal Haven, in Portland. We've never been there. Never talked about going. The receipt was dated just 2 weeks ago. 1 room, 2 nights, queen bed. The name on the reservation, Claire W. That was it. No more vague intuition. No more shrugging things off. It was real. Something was happening. I didn't know if she'd been there with the man from the photo, or someone else entirely. But whoever it was, they weren't just a lunch partner. They weren't just an old colleague. They were enough to make her lie. Enough to make her pretend. Enough to make her change things about herself she once swore she never would. And yet, she still came home. Still kissed me on the cheek. Still asked about my day. Sometimes I'd watch her sleep, wondering how someone could carry 2 lives so effortlessly. Wondering which one was real. This woman beside me in our bed, or the stranger sipping wine across a table in a city I'd never been invited to. I didn't bring it up. Not yet. Not because I was afraid of the truth, but because I needed to be sure. It wasn't about catching her. It wasn't about confrontation. Not anymore. It was about waking up to a reality I'd been blind to for far too long. The signs were always there. I just wasn't ready to see them. Until now. It was a Friday morning when everything snapped into place. Claire was making coffee in that same casual way she always did, humming under her breath, scrolling her phone in one hand while pouring oat milk with the other. I sat at the counter, pretending to check email, pretending everything was fine. She said she was flying out for a weekend corporate training retreat with her firm's marketing team. Seattle. 2 nights. It was last minute, she claimed. Some high-priority development workshop. I asked her the usual questions, where she was staying, who else was going. She named a few co-workers. Names I'd never met. gave vague details. Just enough to sound rehearsed, but not enough to feel solid. I nodded, smiled, wished her a productive weekend. But something in her tone, the ease with which she told the story, it didn't sit right. That same morning, my friend Lucas texted me. "Hey man, weird question. Claire traveling today?" Lucas worked airport security. We'd been friends since college, but we didn't talk often unless it was fantasy football or birthdays. This message wasn't normal. I froze. "Yeah, she's headed to Seattle. Corporate retreat." "Why?" There was a pause. I stared at the screen, heart in my throat. "Thought so. Saw her going through security with a guy. Not a coworker vibe." I sat back in my chair, staring at those words like they were written in another language. "What do you mean? Who was he?" "Don't know him. Early 40s, maybe. Tall, dark hair, sharp suit. They were close, holding hands at one point. I didn't want to assume, but figured you should know." I swallowed hard, trying to process the words on the screen. Then another message came. I grabbed a pic. "Want me to send it?" My stomach turned. I hesitated before typing. "Yeah, send it." The photo came through a minute later. Blurry, snapped from a side angle at the check-in counter. But there was no mistaking it. Claire, my wife, wearing her favorite long camel coat, the one she wore on our last anniversary. Hair in a loose bun, smile on her face, and standing beside her, pulling a matching suitcase, was a man I had never seen in my life. He was taller than her by a head, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't platonic. They were checking in for a flight to Seattle, together. And then, the final detail that made everything fall apart. Claire turning toward him. His face leaned in. Her lips touched his. I must have stared at the image for 10 minutes before moving. I wasn't surprised. Not really. Some part of me had already known. Deep down, I'd known for weeks. But seeing her, in the coat I bought her for our anniversary, kissing another man before a weekend trip she said was for work, made it real in a way I couldn't emotionally prepare for. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I didn't even react outwardly. I sat there on the bar stool, phone in hand, while she finished her coffee and kissed me goodbye. She kissed me like she always did. Warm, routine, like nothing had changed. "I'll call you when I land," she said. I nodded. "Love you," I replied, somehow keeping my voice steady. She smiled. "Love you too." I watched her leave, suitcase wheels clicking along the pavement, car engine fading down the street. And then I broke. Not in the loud, dramatic way you see in movies. No yelling. No punching walls. I just sat there, staring at the front door, waiting to feel something that made sense. But what I felt was numbness. Total, absolute numbness. I pulled out my phone again, reopened the photo Lucas had sent, zoomed in on her face. That smile wasn't mine anymore. That woman wasn't mine anymore. And maybe she hadn't been for a long time. I went to our bedroom and stood in the doorway for a long time. Everything looked normal. Her side of the bed unmade, a sweater draped over the chair, her perfume still sitting on the dresser. But it didn't feel like our space anymore. Felt like a crime scene, like something irreversible had happened, and the ghost of it lingered in the walls. I started going through drawers. Not angrily, methodically. I wasn't looking for proof anymore. I had the proof, the kind you can't talk your way out of. But I needed to understand how long I'd been blind, how far this went. In her nightstand, I found a small black notebook. Not a journal, just something she used to write lists and random thoughts. I opened it. Page 1 was nothing. Grocery lists, meeting reminders. But a few pages in, I found a name. T. Seattle dinner Thursday. Try black dress. No last name. No context. But I knew. I didn't need a name to know who T was. There were more entries. Flight reshed. Resend sweet confirmation. Buy gift scotch. Don't forget necklace. Each note was small. Incomplete. But together they painted a picture I couldn't ignore. She had been planning this. It wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't an emotional slip-up. It was structured, scheduled, calculated. By noon, I had started packing. I didn't touch her things. Just mine. I didn't even bother folding most of it. Just shoved essentials into 2 duffel bags and grabbed my documents from the file cabinet. Then I pulled out the divorce paperwork I'd printed weeks ago but hadn't signed. I signed them. All of them. And then I placed them in an envelope and set it on the kitchen table, right beside the vase of fake peonies she bought last spring because real ones die too fast. Inside the envelope, I included a handwritten note. Not a long letter. No dramatic goodbye. Just a single sentence. I saw the picture. That was it. I deleted her contact from my phone. Turned off location sharing. Disconnected her from our shared cloud storage. Changed the Wi-Fi password. I took down our framed photo from the hallway. The one from our trip to Oregon wine country. The weekend where, in hindsight, she'd spent more time texting than talking to me. I placed it face down in the drawer and walked out the door. I didn't know where I was going yet. Just that it couldn't be here. Because the truth wasn't a suspicion anymore. It was real. It had a face. It had a name. It had a kiss at the airport and a suite booked in Seattle. And I wasn't gonna stay and play pretend. She'd made her choice. And now I was making mine. I didn't tell anyone. Not right away. When you go through something like that, the instinct isn't to scream, it's to vanish. To fold inward. To retreat from your own life until you can breathe again. That night, after I walked out of the house, I checked into a small Airbnb on the other side of town. Nothing fancy. Just a basement apartment with squeaky floors and mismatched curtains. But it was quiet, and no one knew I was there. That was enough. I turned off my phone and left it on the nightstand. For hours, I just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. I didn't cry. I didn't drink. I didn't speak. It was the kind of silence that doesn't ask for comfort. It just is. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, I let myself sit in that stillness. No pretending. No questioning my instincts. No gaslighting myself into doubting what I already knew. She was gone. Maybe not physically, not yet, but the Claire I knew, the woman I built a life with, she had disappeared long before I did. She just hadn't told me. In a way, I felt like I was the one arriving late to my own ending. By morning, I'd made a list. Not out of anger, but necessity. I needed to organize the chaos into steps. Bullet points. Actions I could take. Because while she was off in Seattle with someone else's hand in hers, I was the one left behind to clean up the fallout. Cancel joint credit cards. Call attorney. Finish paperwork. Remove access to shared accounts. Storage unit, start moving boxes. Utilities, transfer or close. Email employer, request time off. The list helped. I didn't want a confrontation. I didn't want explanations. I didn't need more lies or another performance. I just wanted out. I returned to the house the next day while she was still gone. It felt strange entering my own home like a burglar, but I didn't hesitate. I moved quietly, collected what was mine. Packed boxes in silence. There was something deeply surreal about folding shirts you'd once worn to anniversary dinners, stacking mugs you'd both picked out on a lazy Sunday afternoon, and knowing none of it meant anything anymore. There were reminders everywhere. Notes from her on the fridge, books she had bookmarked. A candle we used to light in the evenings now burned halfway through. They used to be symbols of a life I thought we were building. Now they felt like souvenirs from a play I hadn't realized I'd been cast in. One that ended without me. I found a photo of us in the hallway drawer. A candid one. We were laughing, arms around each other, sun in our eyes. I stared at it for a long time. I almost put it in my bag. But then I didn't. Instead, I set it face down in the drawer, just like I had with the one in the hallway days earlier. I didn't want to destroy it. I just didn't want to take it with me. By the time I was done, you wouldn't have known I ever lived there. I took only what was mine. No traces left behind. I even washed the dishes I'd used. Wiped down the counters. Took out the trash. It wasn't out of kindness. It was closure, my own form of control in a situation where I'd had none. Before leaving, I placed the envelope on the kitchen table. Inside were the signed divorce papers neatly clipped together, and with them a short note. Just 5 words, handwritten in ink. I saw what I needed. I didn't sign it, didn't leave my number, didn't add a dramatic message or underline anything. I didn't need to. She'd know. I stepped outside, locked the door, and placed the key under the planter by the porch. The same one where she used to hide spare ones for friends. It was strange how normal it all felt. Quiet. Methodical. I thought leaving would feel like setting fire to everything we had. But instead, it felt like putting something to rest. A funeral for a future that never arrived. I didn't expect her to respond right away. But she did. 3 days later, on a Sunday evening, my phone, which I'd powered back on only hours earlier, buzzed with a notification. Claire. First it was a text. Where are you? What is this? Then another. Jason. What the hell is going on? Then a call. I let it ring. I didn't want to hear her voice. I couldn't trust what would come out of her mouth. Because I already knew what it would be. Not truth, but reaction. Anger. Shock. Accusation. Tears that might be real or performative. I no longer knew the difference. She left 3 voicemails that night. The first was confused. Hurt, almost. I came home and you were just gone. Everything's gone. What is this, Jason? Are you trying to scare me? The second was defensive. You're acting crazy. I don't know what you think you saw, but I haven't done anything wrong. You should have talked to me. The third was angry. This is cowardly. You disappear instead of facing me? You don't get to walk out like that. We're married, Jason. Grow up. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. She sent emails too. Long ones. Pages and pages of half apologies and rewritten memories. Trying to revise the narrative. Claiming I'd misunderstood, misinterpreted, misjudged. But nowhere in any of them was the word affair. Nowhere was the man's name. No accountability. Just noise. I read one of them, the first, just to see if she'd admit it. She didn't. So I archived the thread and never opened the rest. In the days that followed, she kept trying. More calls. More messages. Shifting tones. One moment desperate, the next manipulative. She said I was throwing everything away over a harmless friendship. Said I was abandoning her during a difficult time. Said she felt betrayed, that I didn't hear her side. But I had heard her side. Dozens of times. Through every lie. Every vague answer. Every deflection and guilt trip. I had listened. Sat there and swallowed her excuses whole, until they made me doubt my own instincts. Now, I didn't owe her a conversation. Silence was my answer, and it was louder than anything I could have said. What I hadn't expected was how effective that silence would be. Over the next 2 weeks, her tone shifted from outrage to pleading, from denial to apology. The messages got shorter, less composed, more desperate, but I held the line. It wasn't revenge. It was self-preservation. The people closest to us started reaching out. Friends, her sister, even a few co-workers. Claire had *N floating versions of the story that painted me as unstable. Said I had abandonment issues, that I overreacted to a private matter, but I didn't defend myself. I didn't call anyone to correct the record, because I knew the truth. And the truth doesn't need defending from people who are committed to misunderstanding it. I started going to therapy twice a week. I didn't want to carry this into whatever came next. I didn't want to become one of those men who stayed stuck in what hurt him. I wanted to heal with intention. One night, my therapist said something that stuck with me. You don't have to win the argument. You just have to reclaim your peace. That became my compass. I deleted the voicemails, blocked her number, filed the papers through my attorney, changed my mailing address, and then one afternoon I adopted a dog. A rescue. Quiet, a little shy, missing a patch of fur on his side. No name listed on the shelter tag, so I called him Bishop. He didn't care about my past. He just wanted walks and a warm place to sleep. I gave him both, and somehow he gave me more. I never planned revenge. That's the funny part. People expect anger to explode, to torch everything on its way out. But I didn't want fire. I just wanted distance, space, clean exit. I wasn't interested in ruining Claire's life. But life has a strange way of keeping score. especially when you stop playing the game. Weeks passed. The divorce filings had been processed. She never contested anything, just responded through a lawyer with a few polite adjustments. All small. She tried to extend the lease on the house, asked to keep a few items we'd bought together. I didn't argue. By then, I was already gone. I'd rented a small place on the other side of the city. Quiet neighborhood. Fewer memories. It didn't come with a walk-in closet or a breakfast nook, but it didn't carry ghosts either. That was enough. Claire stopped messaging me eventually. The emails faded. The calls dried up. I knew she hated that I never gave her a stage. No dramatic confrontation. No last word moment. Just absence. And she didn't know what to do with it. And then, slowly, I started to hear things. Not from her. Not directly. But people talk. Whispers drift. It started with Kyle, an old friend of mine who still worked in the same office building Claire's firm used to occupy. We hadn't spoken in a while, but he sent me a text one morning. "Hey, you probably don't care, but that guy Claire left with? He's gone. Vanished." I paused, then typed, "Gone how?" "Quit the firm. Stopped showing up. Rumor is he had a wife. Or a fiancé. No one knows. Just disappeared." I stared at the screen. Not with satisfaction. Not with smugness. Just quiet confirmation. So that was it. The man she left everything for. The man worth risking our marriage, lying through her teeth, sneaking around cities for, was never planning to stay. It was always temporary. Fleeting. A shadow disguised as light. Part of me thought she might have reached out after that. Some last-ditch confession. But she didn't. Instead, what came next was slower. From what I gathered through the grapevine, Claire's work life took a nosedive. The affair hadn't stayed hidden. Turns out you can't date a client, or maybe it was a vendor, no one was quite sure, without breaching several ethical clauses in a professional contract. She didn't get fired. Not officially. But she was restructured. Demoted. Reassigned to lower-tier clients. Someone said she lost her biggest account after a longtime client requested a new rep. Word spreads. People distance themselves. Especially in the marketing world, where image is currency. I saw a photo on her old coworker's Instagram months later. Claire standing awkwardly at the edge of a group lunch. She looked thinner. Tired. Her smile wasn't quite there. Not fake, just faded. Then the personal unraveling began. The house, our house, went up for rent on Zillow. I recognized the staging in the photos. Same kitchen tiles. Same uneven lighting in the hallway. Except now the furniture was gone. The place looked hollow. Not long after that, someone told me she was living in a studio apartment near downtown. No parking. No balcony. She'd sold most of the furniture during the move. Even gave away Margot, our dog. Correction, her dog. The one she insisted we adopt together but always called hers. A neighbor of mine. A guy named Drew who once ran into us at a couple's dinner. Bumped into her downtown. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week, he told me. Tried to act normal, but you could tell. Something's off. There were other signs too. Mutual friends, people I hadn't seen in a year, started reaching out. Not about her, but about catching up. First, I thought it was random. Then I realized. They were distancing themselves from her and slowly returning to me. Reclaiming the connection. It wasn't petty. Just quiet shifting. Realignment. One of Claire's bridesmaids, someone she used to call her soul sister, emailed me one evening. Said she'd heard what happened. That she believed me, even though Claire had spun a different version of the story. "I should have said something sooner," she wrote. "But I didn't know what was true back then." I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. Just done. What struck me most during those months wasn't how badly Claire's life unraveled. It was how little I felt about it. No rage. No satisfaction. Just this steady, unmoving indifference. I wasn't rooting for her to fail. I just didn't care if she did. And that, I think, was the real revenge. Not some elaborate plan. Not a dramatic reveal in a crowded restaurant. Just silence. Absence. No more giving her anything. Not time, not energy, not even hate. There's a kind of justice in that. When someone burns the bridge and expects you to come swimming through the smoke, only to realize you've already built a new road in the other direction. I once wondered how she could live with herself. Now I don't wonder at all. One day, I passed by her old Instagram account. I wasn't checking up, it just appeared in the search bar as a ghost of old algorithms. The account had gone dark. No new posts, no stories, no sunny brunches or wine tastings or motivational captions. Nothing. Just silence. Someone later told me she left social media altogether. Said it was to reset. But I knew better. There's a point where people don't want to share their lives because they're no longer proud of what it looks like. And that's where she was now. Meanwhile, my life kept moving. Not in big leaps, no dramatic glow-up or perfect rebound, but in steady, intentional steps. I got a better apartment, decorated it how I liked, reconnected with my brother, started cooking again, actual meals, not just microwave stuff. I joined a gym, not to reinvent myself, but because I needed structure. Bishop, my dog, kept me grounded. And for the first time in what felt like years, I could sleep without racing thoughts. I'd have these quiet mornings where I'd wake up, brew my own coffee, sit by the window with Bishop at my feet, and realize something strange. I didn't miss her. Not the real her. Not the version I'd discovered beneath the smiles and soft-voiced apologies. And definitely not the person who ghosted our entire marriage behind a hotel receipt and a photo at the gate of Terminal 3. Sometimes people say time heals. But it's not just time. It's space. It's truth. It's letting go of the idea that closure has to come in a conversation. Sometimes it's a decision you make alone, and then stick to like your life depends on it. Claire may have thought she got away with something, but all she really got was distance from the only person who ever tried to love her without conditions. And when that's gone, when the performance is over and the audience has left the theater, all you're left with is the echo. She'll hear that echo for a long time. Me? I was already walking towards something better. A year passed. I rebuilt my life in quiet ways. New city, remote work, peace I hadn't felt in years. I started dating again, met Allison. She didn't dig into my past. She just showed up every day with calm, kindness, and no pretense. We bought a small home by the lake. No drama, no secrets, just honesty. For the first time, I felt free, whole, and ready to begin again. 3 years later, I saw Claire at my niece's graduation. She looked smaller somehow, tired, haunted. Her eyes found me, but I looked away, fingers laced with Allison's. The music swelled, people clapped, and in that moment, I realized the truth. Peace is the best revenge. Claire was a chapter I'd already finished, and I didn't feel anger or sadness, just nothing at all. Pure, steady indifference.